Now this is a beautiful picture of the Su-34 fullback. Now, most people would consider this jet to be the color blue. It's generally blue, it looks blue, and against the sky, it looks pretty blue, right? Now, a portion of people will also say, well, it's kind of blue. And sure, there's some arguments. This is technically a bicolor camo, so there's some darker blue elements, but there's also some lighter blue elements to this jet, maybe even baby blue. So maybe you can argue that this jet isn't entirely blue, it's a mix of different blues, right? And even some streaks of white and black. And then you have people who say it's red. Now at first glance, you might think, no, that's not right. This jet is blue, but it does have red on it. For example, the 38 has the color red, and the Soviet stars have the color red. So that person's not entirely wrong, but again, the majority of the jet is blue, right? And that sort of creates a conflicting argument between all three of these. But then you get one last argument, the person who would say this jet is colored eggplant. The absolutely unhinged individual person who goes on a Hail Mary and says this jet is colored eggplant. Now that is a prime example of how I feel about the War Thunder sim community, and for the most part, the War Thunder community in general. Most people have somewhat valid arguments, but none of them really connect or are unified, right? I mean, maybe besides the argument that the fullback is eggplant colored, it's obviously not, and if you think it is, you may be a psychopath and should seek mental help. But for the most part, yes, it has parts of red, blue, and yada yada yada. Now, again, that's just an example. I've never actually seen this argument, but I have seen arguments similar to that. For example, whether the R-27ER is a good missile or bad missile. Well, you can state, well, yeah, it's a good missile because the missile goes super fast, accelerates super well, and it tracks very good depending on what radar you're using, right? You can even say the missile is overpowered. Well, a counter-argument would be, well, I could just multipath and the missile would miss every single time. And that is true. And then there's the other argument where, well, multipathing doesn't work every time because the ER will kill you if you're flying below Mach or near mountains. And it just goes into a continuous loop of, I'm right, you're wrong, here's why, and yada yada yada. Another prime example would be the multipathing issue. Now, a lot of people say it should be removed from the game, some people say it should be variable, and some people say it should be increased or stay the same, right? And of course you can look at all these comments and you could just see everyone has their mixed opinions about it. What Gaijin did is they went with the more, I guess, centrist route, which would be, I believe they reduced it to, what, 50 meters? And honestly, for how divided WarThunder's community is, I think the centrist route was the best take for Gaijin to do, at least in that situation. But will they ever revisit the argument? Probably not, unless people start complaining about it again. Now, in terms of sim, right, the issue we'll be talking about today is mostly with simulator battles balanced. As you could see here, most players play the US, and those teams just get filled up, and a lot of Red 4 players just get overwhelmed with the amount of players they have to fight in order to just stay in the air. And this is somewhat true, but as a CC in the program, it really doesn't affect me as much as it affects other players. Now, I've been playing this game for 9 years, and for the most part, I've seen the community change a lot. You know, it used to be centered around historical accuracy, and then gameplay, and then it kind of just devolved into debauchery. But one thing that has sort of stayed around since the beginning, or since at least when I started playing the game, is nationalism. Players like to see their country's vehicle do really good. Whether it would do really good in real life, or whether these jets are being put, or vehicles are being put in unrealistic situations, they want them to do the best possible because they saw a History Channel documentary, and in the documentary it said it did good. So that's a kind of a problem, because War Thunder doesn't accurately simulate real life combat, nor does it simulate real life military technology. It gets close, sure, I'll give it that. It gets close. But a lot of this stuff, at least at the higher PRs and top tier, is classified. Not to mention, a lot of the stuff isn't being used in the way that it should be used, right? For example, if you're playing Sim alone, just soloing a Su-27 versus the enemy team, you don't have comms to communicate with any other jet. You just have to type in chat and hope someone sees it and comes to your aid. There's really no ground radars to direct you. There's no AWACS. There's no supporting units. There's no long-range SAMs. You're pretty much just sent out into the open to fight a full-scale air war with no supporting units. And this is for both sides, right? That's not a good thing. Nor is it really realistic. Maybe for some air forces that don't have the required assets to do that. But for example, like the Soviets and the United States, they're never going to be in a conflict where they don't have supporting assets helping them. Not to mention there's 1,000 billion other variables that go into air combat and a full-on scale war, right? That WarThunder just doesn't have in EC. So you're putting these jets that you're trying to model accurately into a scenario where they wouldn't be in. For example, if you have a flanker flying a one ship into a full combat zone, that's just never gonna happen. It shouldn't happen. Usually you'll have supporting units at least somewhere nearby, or at least where you could contact, or a wingman, right? But in terms of WarThunder, most people play, solo and sim, which is fine, it works, but that sort of exaggerates some of the issues people are having. Like, for example, let's say I fly a Phantom solo and I got shot down because I had no one in the air doing combat air patrols or trying to shoot down the enemy jets. Yeah, of course you're going to get shot down. You don't have an escort, right? And then, of course, they complain, well, the Phantom's bad, and then it kind of screws up BRs and changes things. So basically, what's the solution to this, right? Because it just happens every single update. Every new jet Gaijin adds, people are like, oh, it's too overpowered, or it's too underpowered, yada, yada, yada. My country's the best. Here's why you're wrong. Happens every update. Whether those people are right or wrong, it really doesn't matter, because the end of the line for Gaijin is to make money. So they're going to go with the most centrist route. And believe it or not, most people complaining in WarThunder is kind of a small majority. They just seem to be the loudest because they're really the only ones talking about these issues. Now, the one time Gaijin actually did fold and go to player demands was when most people were unified in their goals, and that was with the review bombing. I don't think anything else connected to that, like, oh, let's not play at a certain time. I think that had nothing to do with Gaijin adding the new roadmap. I think what got them moving was the review bombing, because at the end of the day, people see the reviews, they're not going to download the game, aka Gaijin's not going to make money. That's what got the wheels turning, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but personally, that's what I think. And that was a unified effort. Most people agreed, yeah, let's go review bomb. I personally didn't support it. I personally didn't really care. But again, it is what got us the roadmap. So the trend I've been seeing is if it actually affects Gaijin's revenue, then they will actually try to remedy the problem. Now, I did say that was a unified front, but that's sort of a half-truth, because if you really look into it, they made a Discord about, what should be changed and what should be resolved, and there was so much power struggles in that Discord, and so many issues of, oh, we should do this, and no, we should do that, and this, because the WarThunder community is just so divided that they really didn't get major issues solved. The game is relatively the same for the most part, and that's a shame, and it's mostly because WarThunder players are divided on what they actually want. Everybody wants their nation to do the best. Everyone wants this thing to do better than the other. Now, I would consider myself to be average at the game. I'm not super good. I'm not some high-speed sweat, but I'm also not super bad at the game. And personally, I feel like I could just fly really any vehicle and enjoy it. Whether I'm dying or getting kills in it, it doesn't really matter to me. If I want to get kills, I'll fly a Gripen. If I want to have a challenge, I'll fly a flanker. So it doesn't really matter to me. And I do understand how it could matter to other players because not every player grinded or has every tech tree due to the CC program. Some people only have Russia and only play against teams that have more jets, and that can get frustrating over a while. So that's very understandable. But to get back on track, what can WarThunder players do? What can you do to actually help the game get better and help the community divide lessen? Well, I do think nationalism does play a big role, and it's almost impossible to fix in WarThunder. You're just not going to fix some numbskulls who think their jet is the best jet in the world and should kill everything. Unfortunately, people like that, aka the eggplant type of person, will always exist in WarThunder. But again, that's not a majority. What I think most players need to do is look deeper into these issues of why this is happening, because it's never going to stop, right? The pendulum's always going to swing. Op 4 is going to get the best jet in the game, people are going to complain, then it'll get nerfed, then Blue 4 will get the best jet in the game, rinse and repeat. It's going to happen over and over and over. It has happened over and over and over. Nothing will get resolved, right? What WarThunder players need to do is get more unified ideas and look bigger. A good example is the B-17. Most people think, oh, I don't want to fly the B-17 because I'm just going to die to a bunch of fighters. Well, yeah, you're going to die to fighters when you're the only B-17 bombing a target. Or maybe, you know, benefit of the doubt. Let's say 4 B-17s go to bomb a single target. Yeah, you're going to die. Usually B-17s go out in like flights of 50, right? And they take casualties, but still they bomb the target and get the mission done. They're not designed to fly a sortie solo. And that's a good example of pretty much every single vehicle in this game. They're being used in ways they shouldn't be used, and then people say, oh, well, it's bad. Yeah, no wonder your artillery piece isn't killing other MBTs. That's not what it's meant for. You know what I mean? So people need to get more unified ideas, look at each other's arguments, and be like, okay, well, let's see what's the core to this problem. Oh, it's not just the jet being overpowered, it's the way I'm playing it, or it's the way Gaijin has me playing it due to the maps or game modes, etc, etc. Now, in terms of sim, what I think they should do is broaden their horizon a little more. I think what Gaijin has to do is add long-range SAMs, so there's pretty much no fly zones. Of course, you'll be able to destroy them. They can also add maybe helicopters to, you know, make things a little more saturated, and perhaps they can add more team play aspects, maybe even add a voice chat. Maybe, potentially, that would make things a little less chaotic in sim and more planned and methodical. Additionally, they can also add AWACS to help with situational awareness at higher BRs, or even just a situational awareness page, or better, data link, right? That type of stuff can really help an aircraft if it's underperforming or aka bad. That type of stuff will definitely help you do a little better in sim, I believe, instead of just going straight to the, oh, this jet's bad because it can't maneuver, Gaijin buff it or Gaijin nerf it. That's just gonna go into a circle forever and it's gonna get nothing solved. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys think. I didn't hit every point that I wanted to, but I don't want this video to drag out. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you want to help support the channel, and like this video, and tell me in the comments down below. I'm pretty sure I already said this, but tell me what you guys think about the argument I displayed, or how divided the community is. Anyway, take care, stay safe, don't die.